Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we are strapping in for something a bit different. Not curated knowledge, no. This is more like a deep immersion into, well, pure, unedited human chaos.
That's right, our source material. It's a single, sprawling Twitter space, hosted by Alberto Daniel Hill, and it features just an extraordinary mix of voices, topics, everything.
Yeah, everything from, really high stakes personal secrets and police trauma all the way to global corporate deception and, believe it or not, a frantic pizza emergency right at the start.
Exactly. So, for you, the listener, the mission here is really to analyze the underlying structure, if you can call it that, of this mess, this audio. It's raw. It is the definition of a social audio fire hose.
Right.
We're going to be tracking how Alberto, the host, sort of manages this level of unpredictability, how participants build or maybe destroy their credibility in real time.
And what lessons we can actually pull out of it.
Hmm.
Psychological, political, strategic maybe, all from a conversation that seems, well, designed to avoid polish entirely.
Hmm. And that opening sequence, it just sets the tone immediately. We're talking immediate disarray.
Total disarray. Alberto's trying to manage the tech, right?
Hmm.
The setup, but he's also trying to order dinner at the same time. You can literally hear him multitasking.
Yeah, saying things like, I'm already my pizza closer in 5 minutes. Oh no, what am I doing? And it's up.
He's struggling because his microphone is like 3 meters away, apparently. So the audio is all muffled. It's not a smooth start, not at all. It's frantic, messy, and, yeah, profoundly human.
And that messy authenticity, that's precisely the point, isn't it? When you kick off with that kind of immediate technical vulnerability, the whole pizza emergency thing,
Yeah.
you're basically telling your audience, look, this is real life breaking through.
Yeah, it lowers the barrier.
Totally. It lowers the barrier for participation, tells the listener, hey, this space values being genuine over, high production value. It manages expectations right away. Like anything profound we stumble upon here, it's probably going to be accidental, not manufactured.
Okay, so let's unpack the core idea that actually started the space. Dirty secrets. I mean, that's an instant anxiety generator, right?
Oh, absolutely. And one of the co-hosts, Amy, she voices this concern straight away. She said something like, I'm going to get in trouble for being in this space if my friends see me.
Yeah, she's showing that societal pressure, right? Just the association with the topic is risky for her.
It's that social calculus of reputation, isn't it? Amy isn't worried about what she might disclose. She's worried about what her mere presence signals to her network.
And Alberto, the host, he's sharp. He picks up on this fear instantly and uses it, really, to set the ground rules.
He does. He immediately asserts that the problem isn't the content of the secrets themselves. He says it's how people perceive the secret.
And that distinction feels really crucial. It's like he's trying to disarm the room, shifting the blame, maybe,
Yeah.
from the person with the secret to the judgmental society looking in.
It's a tactic, yeah. A mechanism to encourage vulnerability.
But Amy gives the perfect counterpoint, highlighting the cost of that judgment, her coping strategy. It's this personal rule, she states.
Right. The best way to avoid being demonized for dirty little secrets is to not have any, which is, wow.
That's a life governed by some intense, preemptive self-censorship, isn't it? All aimed at minimizing social risk.
It is.
Yeah.
And the deep dive here is understanding that these kinds of authenticity spaces, like the one we're looking at, they're actively trying to dismantle the very societal mechanism Amy relies on for her own safety. It's a direct clash.
We should probably analyze Alberto's communication style here as well, because it's definitely a strategy he uses throughout the whole space. He's constantly managing audience expectations by admitting things like, I'm really bad at communication, or I speak too fast, and even that his brain is sad when it comes to communicating.
It's fascinating, isn't it? Is this self-deprecation just honesty? Or is it a deliberate technique, like strategic vulnerability?
What do you mean?
Well, if he preemptively labels his own communication as flawed, then anything shocking or rambling or confusing that comes later, it can kind of be excused, right? It almost shields him from detailed critique.
Huh. That's an interesting take.
But the question then becomes, does that approach erode his authority over time? If you keep telling your audience you're bad at communicating, do they eventually stop taking your points seriously? It feels like a trade-off.
Yeah, a trade-off between maybe instant rapport and, long-term gravitas.
Exactly. Though you have to say, it seems to work pretty well in this specific environment, which really thrives on that human connection over polished authority.
Definitely. And he pushes the envelope even further, doesn't he? By introducing an AI voice.
Oh, yeah, the AI voice,
Right.
which he apparently requested to speak English with a South African accent, of all things.
Right. To debate the actual philosophical definition of secret. Like, is it just something private, or does it have to be intentionally, actively concealed?
It just adds this layer of, well, surreal performative chaos, doesn't it? It's like the digital equivalent of a court jester.
Yeah, injecting technical absurdity to keep the energy high, keep people maybe a bit off balance.
But then the dynamic shifts pretty dramatically from this abstract philosophical chat.
To high-stakes reality
Yeah.
when a participant named Luke jumps in.
Right. This is where it gets really sensitive.
Extremely. Luke offers this radical, immediate personal disclosure. He says, I've paid women to have sex with them multiple times in my life.
Boom. Just like that. This isn't theory anymore. This is immediate exposure of something potentially very stigmatizing.
And this is where Alberto's hosting style is really put to the test, I think. His response.
It's not just non-judgmental, is it? It's like aggressively normalizing. He immediately reframes it, calls it a service or a consensual transaction where both parties benefit.
Yeah, he specifically asks Luke, do you see it as something bad where both people agree on something and they get a benefit from that? He's validating Luke's interpretation.
Exactly. Reinforcing that safe space he claims he's created. And that non-judgmental validation, that's the magnetic force, right? That's what draws out this level of honesty.
But there's a cost, an immediate, visible cost. Amy, the co-host, who was worried earlier.
She's out quickly, announces she has to go to sleep. But later, interestingly, she tries to sort of pretend she didn't quite catch it all, asking Alberto to keep the conversation secret.
Right, which is fascinating in itself.
It really is. That's the ultimate push and pull of radical honesty, isn't it? It's magnetic for someone like Luke seeking acceptance, but it actively burns others out of the room, like Amy, who rely on established social boundaries.
So departure just perfectly illustrates that real-time social cost, the participant retention risk of radical, unscripted disclosure.
Yeah. The deeper you dive into truth, maybe the smaller and more specialized the audience becomes that can actually handle the pressure.
Okay, so moving from those really high-stakes personal secrets, the conversation then shifts pretty naturally, actually, to public figures, politicians.
Right. And the AI assistant pipes up again early on, stating that politicians don't have secrets, or shouldn't, because transparency is required. If they hide something, it implies they've committed crime.
Which immediately forces you, the listener, to think about the difference between privacy and actual deception in the public sphere. Where is that line when we talk about public trust?
And the classic case they bring up, inevitably, is Bill Clinton and Monica Lewinsky.
Yeah.
And the point made is that the core issue wasn't the affair itself. You could argue that was maybe private, maybe not, but the subsequent outright lie under oath.
Absolutely. The source material calls it the lie. That's the quote. I did not have sex with that woman. That initial transgression, yeah, it creates drama, but the absolute blatant denial in the face of truth, that's the systemic trust killer.
It fundamentally breaks that social contract you need for a representative democracy to function, right?
Totally. And if you connect this to the bigger picture, it kind of explains why the public often forgives bad judgment eventually, but rarely forgives absolute deception.
The psychology seems pretty simple there. Poor judgment feels human, relatable maybe, but a blatant public lie, that's an attempt to manipulate everyone's shared reality.
Yeah.
When someone like Lance Armstrong or Clinton in that moment looks right into the camera and denies the undeniable, they're basically treating the public like fools. And that feels like a far greater sin against public trust than whatever secret they were trying to protect in the first place.
Which really sets the stage perfectly for the next deep dive they take into an even more systemic kind of deception.
Yeah.
The open secret of professional bodybuilding.
Yeah.
Specifically, Mr. Olympia.
Ah, yes. This is a pretty devastating critique of an entire industry based on the source. It just lays the fact bare. It says it's completely stupid to think that any human being can get to that elite level without abuse of anabolic steroids.
And the key part is, this isn't really hidden information, is it? It's presented as a known reality, an open secret, where the regulating bodies, the organizations are obviously aware, but just turn a blind eye.
Wait, let's just linger on that for a second, because this isn't just, cheating in the sport. This involves multiple systemic failures all working together.
How so?
Well, you've got sponsors demanding bigger and bigger spectacles. You've got media outlets maybe not wanting to dig too deep because they might lose access. And you have the federations themselves prioritizing the financial success of their circus, as the source calls it, over the actual health of the athletes.
It's a massive collaborative deception then, isn't it?
Precisely, and the cost is just staggering. The participants detail these massive health risks, severe liver problems, chronic heart issues, and athletes dying at very young ages, sometimes in their 30s or 40s.
Wow.
The source material frames this whole ecosystem as a calculated compromise, where the institutions basically permit documented harm for the sake of spectacle and profit. The secret isn't kept from the insiders, the participants, it's kept from the casual observer, letting the whole economic machine keep running.
And the conversation then draws parallels, doesn't it?
Yeah.
To other global industries that rely on similar systemic hidden realities. They mentioned K-pop.
Yeah, K-pop, where these extreme, often dangerous diet regimes and just relentless pressure are kind of the open secret behind the polished final product everyone sees.
And they also touched on academia.
Right. Academia, with its hidden culture of overwork, immense stress, mental health crises, all sort of normalized as just the price you pay for success.
So in all these examples, bodybuilding, K-pop, academia, the pattern is similar. The systemic expectation is unsustainable, unhealthy. But the secrecy, or maybe the willful ignorance.
Exactly. It allows the people at the top to maintain deniability, while the people lower down pay the real physical and mental cost. It's a powerful lesson. Systemic secrets are often maintained not by total silence, but by organized indifference.
Okay, so we've been talking about the huge social cost of secrets and the supposed value of this raw honesty. But then, ironically, our source material includes this brutal, highly structured critique of the host's own business model. The Cyber Midnight Club.
It's quite a pivot, isn't it? The ultimate self-referential moment dropped right into the middle of this chaotic space.
Totally meta.
And the host's main output, the Cyber Midnight Club podcast, it's fueled by this exact same energy we've been discussing. The raw social audio human interest story model.
Yeah, this approach has led to what the critique calls an anti-podcast model, with nearly 600 episodes, often pulled straight from unscripted live shows, just like the one we're analyzing now.
But that structured critique highlights the core paradox, doesn't it? While this raw style generates authenticity and, well, a huge volume of content,
It utterly fails when it comes to mainstream discovery. That's the punchline. The high-volume, low-production approach apparently tanks chart visibility, makes the content feel like an unstructured library.
let's break down the technical reason for that failure for a second, because it's relevant for anyone creating content, really. Mainstream podcast apps, algorithms like Spotify, Apple Podcasts, they're generally optimized for linear listening, right? For seasons, consistent release schedules.
Bingeability.
Exactly. So when you just dump 600 chaotic episodes into a feed with unstructured titles, listeners can't really track a narrative arc. They can't binge efficiently. It creates this overwhelming content shock.
Makes the library unusable.
Pretty much. And the algorithms see this. They see listeners maybe sampling one or two episodes but not committing, and they suppress it. Because the data tells them it's not engaging listeners long term.
So the authenticity, the very thing that's the strength in the live space, becomes the fatal business flaw in the established distribution ecosystem.
That seems to be the argument. However, it's not presented as a total failure. The strategy does foster incredible localized loyalty. The source material flags this Uruguay anomaly.
Yeah, 2.4% of the show's entire global audience comes from this tiny country, Uruguay.
That specific data point just screams for attention, doesn't it? That kind of super specific regional loyalty proves the model can work spectacularly well for niche high-interest content that often gets ignored by the big polished productions. And the critique points out that this anomaly suggests a massive untapped demand for more high-interest, maybe non-English content, like perhaps a Latin America Cyberwatch series delivered in Spanish.
So treating those unique loyalty spikes as just happy accidents is a strategic mistake.
That's the implication. And the major strategic failure is really visible on Spotify, according to the source. It notes the show only gets about 5.9% of its total plays there, and incredibly, just 60 followers over 5 years, despite hundreds of episodes.
60 followers in 5 years. That's
Wow. That's a catastrophic distribution gap. It requires what the critique calls aggressive optimization.
And for you, the listener, what does optimization mean in this context?
It means meticulously editing titles to include high-ranking keywords people actually search for. It means using all the available metadata tags, actively leveraging Spotify's own in-app features like Q&A or polls to send positive signals back to the algorithm.
So the raw style works organically on a platform like Twitter Spaces, but it's currently failing institutionally where structure and polish are rewarded.
That seems to be the crux of it. And speaking of raw data, Right after this business analysis, a participant identified only as T enters the conversation.
Oh, yeah, T.
Yeah.
And he reveals this astonishing statistic. He says he has logged 335,000 recorded Twitter spaces
335,000.
and is currently logging around 40,000 per day across all languages.
That is just immense. If the anti-podcast empire is built on raw conversations, then T is basically sitting on the digital bedrock of that empire.
Alberto immediately gets the significance, doesn't he? He analyzes the immense power this represents. He says all the conversations of thousands of people, that's a lot of power.
And he starts discussing the potential for analysis. Not just listening, but crossing information. Checking for consistency or contradictions, patterns between different experts speaking in different rooms, maybe at different times across the world.
It's the ultimate hacker mindset applied to human conversation, isn't it? The sheer volume of data itself becomes the power.
Exactly. If you can cross-reference what an expert says in a public recorded space versus maybe a closed-door, less public one, well, you potentially gain immense insight into their true beliefs or maybe their vulnerabilities. The data logger holds the ultimate key to pattern recognition in all this chaos. Then the conversation kind of shifts back again to the personal, trying to define the kind of personality that actually thrives in this sort of high chaos environment. And we return to Amy.
Right, Amy. And she recounts the very chaotic origin story of her friendship with Alberto, the host.
Yeah, she reveals that the start of their dynamic was rooted in this instant, intentional shock. Alberto apparently immediately told her, "I've hacked you."
Wow, just like that.
Just like that. Followed by an instant pivot to inviting her to be a co-host, he deliberately used the language of a cyber threat to establish a connection.
That's a bold strategy.
It's incredibly bold. And this specific use of shock and timing seems critical to understanding the host's method. Amy, who also mentions having a schizophrenia diagnosis, explains that this joke initially plunged her into a paranoid state.
Understandably.
Right. Yet because of Alberto's rapid pivot and what she calls her gift of understanding, his serious yet joking nature, the trust was actually cemented right then and there.
So the chaos was a deliberate test.
It seems like it. And because they both perhaps shared a high-intensity, non-standard way of processing things, the test was passed, and it forged this powerful, instant bond.
It suggests that for certain personality types, maybe the traditional slow build of trust through politeness and small talk is just inefficient.
Yeah, maybe shock and shared intensity actually accelerate the process for some people. Which leads us to another participant, Zach or Phil.
Right, Zach Phil, who further illustrates the profile of the kind of people drawn into this space.
Zach introduces himself with this really elaborate gaming handle, Sackilla Roninitis, linking together Call of Duty, the masterless samurai Ronin, and King Leonidas from 300.
Okay, so clearly someone with a rich inner world.
Definitely. He self-identifies as a stay-at-home dad, someone who values hardcore imagination, function over aesthetics, and he constantly promotes the value of always asking questions.
He sounds like a very resourceful, high-energy, creative personality type.
Exactly. And importantly, the host and Amy immediately connect with Zach over being part of the neurodivergent community. They mention ADHD and autism specifically.
And they intentionally reframe their high energy and intensity not as deficits, which is how society often sees them, but as
superpowers in our brains. That's the phrase they use.
That's a really powerful act of validation, isn't it? Right there in the chaos.
It absolutely is. And you have to ask, how does high energy or maybe difficulty with impulse control become a superpower in a real-time audio room like this?
Well, I guess these spaces demand quick thinking, rapid idea generation. The willingness to speak before a thought is perfectly polished.
Precisely. Traits that are often stigmatized in more structured environments like impulsivity or intensity or tangential thinking, they actually become assets here. They drive the dynamic, ensure the conversation never stagnates.
So the space itself becomes a kind of sanctuary, maybe, for non-standard personality types who are looking for a place where their processing styles are actually useful, even celebrated.
It feels like a really core part of the dynamic, yes.
Okay, we now hit what feels like the most emotionally dense and maybe the most critical part of this whole deep dive. It centers around the participant Yuri.
Right. And even his ability to speak is a lesson in persistence within this chaos. Apparently, he spent over an hour sitting there as a speaker, unable to talk because of microphone driver issues on his desktop.
Over an hour, just trying to get his mic working.
Yeah. And he finally managed to connect and speak by using a secondary platform like Adobe Connect or something similar as a workaround.
That sheer determination. I mean, the main system failed, so he finds this external software workaround.
Yeah.
It really highlights how necessary he must have felt it was to contribute to this raw discussion.
Absolutely. And when he finally gets the floor, the complexity of his topics is immediate. He starts with this huge, high-stakes subject, the invention of free energy devices.
Okay.
And he links them to creatures apparently detected via infrared cameras.
Right. Now, the host's analysis here, even with that conspiracy theory element floating around, is immediately grounded in geopolitical and economic reality, isn't it?
It is. He pivots the discussion straight to power analysis. He says, look, free energy means the loss of billions, maybe trillions, in profit and control for incredibly powerful entities, oil companies, uranium suppliers, global utilities.
Which instantly makes inventors of such devices potential targets.
Exactly. He's confirming that whether you believe the specifics of the conspiracy or not, the underlying economic reality means the stakes involved are potentially life or death high.
But then the conversation takes this sharp, brutal turn as Yuri starts to share his own systemic secret, his recent profound personal trauma.
Yeah. He explains he was catfished by someone he thought was a friend, lured into a situation that turned into an attempted car robbery.
And this led to a chaotic, high-intensity police stop, while he was apparently in a state of paranoid delusion.
This segment. Yeah, we need to handle it slowly.
Yeah.
The details described are just horrifying. The confrontation involved 6 police cruisers crashing into his car.
6.
6. He was pulled out after the window was broken, thrown onto the tarmac, hitting his head hard enough to cause a severe head injury, brain damage.
Oh, my God.
And in his delusional state, he apparently tried to defend himself with a small, mundane object, a fishing hook, which was later seized by police and charged as a deadly weapon.
Wait. A fishing hook. Charged as a deadly weapon after he suffered a brain injury during the stop itself.
That's what the source material indicates. And that detail right there, that's where the system's ability to just maximize charges against a vulnerable individual becomes sickeningly clear.
This feels like the absolute peak moment of personal vulnerability being exposed in the name of raw honesty in this space. But it's also illustrating extreme potential dysfunction in the justice system.
Absolutely. And the source material is clear on the perceived systemic failure here. The police conduct involved what Yuri described as obvious abuse of power, not following protocol. And critically, all of this was apparently recorded on camera.
But here's the profound injustice for Yuri. The financial trap. He couldn't afford the $40,000 lawyer he felt he needed to actually fight the 9 charges they pressed against him.
$40,000. And that financial barrier, that's the real sentence, isn't it? He wasn't necessarily defeated by the evidence. The implication is he was defeated by the lack of funds to mount a proper defense.
And because he couldn't fight it properly.
He's currently paying between $5,000 and $10,000 in restitution. He's under severe probation restrictions. And crucially, he cannot get a passport. He's trapped.
A legal system that allows a financial barrier like that to dictate the outcome. It's inherently skewed against the poor, the marginalized, anyone without significant resources.
Without a doubt. And the host, Alberto, he expertly uses his own background here, his regional knowledge from Uruguay, to contextualize this whole tragedy.
Right, he contrasts Yuri's first offense in the U.S., which was apparently being arrested for consuming psychedelic mushrooms, with Uruguay's drug policy.
Exactly. In Uruguay, personal drug use isn't treated primarily as a crime demanding incarceration. It's framed as a public health issue. Plus, marijuana is nationally legalized there. The system is designed differently, prioritizing rehabilitation and non-punitive approaches, at least in theory.
And this stark comparison just highlights the perceived absurdity of the U.S. system that Yuri is now trapped within.
Yeah, the lesson extracted is critical, really, for you, the listener, to understand when thinking about different legal systems. The host observes that U.S. drug laws can seem ridiculous and make no sense in practice.
They don't just prosecute an offense in isolation. These punitive systems, as described, can ruin lives by creating a permanent criminal record.
Which effectively results in a lifetime sentence, doesn't it? Restricted opportunities in employment, housing, even just movement, like the passport ban. It really drives home how financial barriers and perhaps outdated laws can conspire to perpetuate these cycles of poverty and injustice. So when we step back and try to synthesize the sheer chaos of this deep dive, we see a conversation that started with, low-stakes anxiety over pizza delivery.
The pizza emergency.
And ended with the exposure of severe systemic injustice, massive corporate deception, and really profound personal trauma. The flow is just utterly unpredictable.
Yep.
Wild.
Yet that very lack of structure, that chaos was the engine, wasn't it? The authenticity, the rawness of this unscripted environment allowed for a depth of knowledge sharing and emotional exposure that, frankly, polished, structured media just cannot achieve.
Definitely not. The willingness of participants like Luke, and especially Yuri, to be radically honest despite the immense social and potential legal risks, that's what powered the entire session.
The space became this temporary kind of sanctuary, where neurodivergence could be framed as a superpower, where self-deprecation was maybe a strategic tool.
And where the ultimate secret revealed wasn't just the actions of individuals, but perhaps the vast, unchecked power of institutions, corporate, legal, political institutions that often profit from secrecy and maintaining control.
Which leaves us, and you, the listener, with a pretty provocative closing thought, doesn't it? Bringing this whole chaotic journey back to you. If this anti-podcast empire, this raw approach, thrives on this kind of unedited honesty,
And if you believe that radical transparency is essential for true human connection, for genuine insight, then the question becomes, how much chaos are you willing to inject into your own professional or even personal life to achieve that same level of radical honesty?
what is the real price, personally, professionally, of letting go of all the polish?